Hello, and welcome to part 4 of my personal budgeting series, How to Use a Budget. And just as a reminder, we're currently right here in our 7-part personal budgeting series. Okay, so let's assume that you've got a budget, either one that you've prepared yourself or your financial planner has prepared with you. Now what do you do with that? Well, I'm going to talk about variance analysis, fiscal control, goal setting, how it's used for other purposes, and how to enjoy it. And hopefully you'll agree with me when we're all done that having a budget and learning how to use it is a very, very important skill. Okay, so let's start with variance analysis. And what we mean by that is simply comparing your budget targets with the actual revenues or expenses that you incur. And it's something that you want to do at least once a quarter, though doing it monthly I think is more optimal. And what we're doing here is we're looking at what caused the variance. Why are the numbers different? And you may not want to look at every single variance. You perhaps want to set a threshold that if the variance is greater than 10%, for example, then it's worth looking into. And you want to break down why the variance occurred. And variances can be favorable, i.e., you've been you did something good, did something right, or they can be unfavorable, where the planning wasn't well done, or the expenses exceeded what your plan was for reasons that were under your control. And also, it helps to improve your future planning, and it reinforces positive behavior. So let's take a quick look at a spreadsheet to give you a visual of what we're talking about. So here's the standard budget spreadsheet that we're using in the previous parts of the personal budgeting series. And these numbers here by month are coming from other parts of the worksheet, so you're not re-entering them. They're automatically filled in for you. And then we get the variance. And I like to look at variances this way, that if it's a positive number, i.e. I've subtracted the 150 from the 155, it means that I've gone over. If it's a negative, then it means that I'm running under. And that's just my convention. So what you're doing when you're looking at a variance by category for a particular month is, why is that number $55, right? The month is over, my budget was $200, what happened that it's $145? And over here, why is it $75 greater? And you're just looking at it, in this case, it could be, well, that was the wrong plan. I really got a discount here that I didn't factor in. It's really only $145, whatever. And here, it could be again that this $75 was because you ran the air conditioner more or the furnace more. But you want to understand why these variances are occurring, and are the reasons for their occurrence either attributed to poor planning in terms of setting the targets, or decisions or behavior that were under your control that perhaps maybe indicate the proper fiscal discipline wasn't applied, and you might need to think about it the next time that occurs. So again, it's very simple. It's simply looking at the difference between the actual and the budget, and trying to understand the reason why those differences occurred. Okay, so in addition to understanding your variances, it's also using the budget is also really important for keeping track of your expenses, which is again a fundamental prerequisite for budgeting in general. And it also helps with your decision making when it comes to purchases. It reinforces, is this purchase a need versus a want? Is it in your budget or is it outside your budget? It makes you very price conscious, because if you're trying to achieve a budget target, then you're going to want to get at the right price, the right value. And I actually use the budget to help me improve my negotiating. For example, I may let a sales rep know that I have a budget and that I'm trying to stick to my budget, which tells them that I'm perhaps not an impulse buyer, that I'm going to be a buyer who's going to be very conscious of the price. And I also use it for in conjunction with customer loyalty programs that say my internet provider was raising the costs every year. Finally, I called them and I said, hey, is there anything that could be done to reverse this trend? And they put me through their customer loyalty department, and voila, they lowered my bill by $10 simply by me asking. So that's a pretty neat thing, this whole area of negotiating. Your budget can be a really good tool to help you with your negotiating and getting the best value for your dollars. And timing. By by thinking of your budget, you may make your purchases earlier rather than later. And typically, if you make your purchases in advance, you have an opportunity to often get them at a lower cost. So again, all these are behaviors that help keep your budget under fiscal control. Also, you can identify trends. You can see whether your purchases are driving your expenses up, and if those purchase decisions are based more on ex-budgeted things or wants, then you might have to go ahead and make some changes in terms of how you do your budgeting or your decision making. The key is that you see these things early, you can react proactively and either change your behavior, cut something out if you're going over budget. It just allows you to try to keep things in balance. So seeing trends is a really important part of the fiscal control aspect of how to use your budget. And you also might think of it as an opportunity to conserve, that you can manage the volume of certain services that you use, whether it's water, electricity, or gas, and that's a good thing for the environment as well as for your budget. And this element is something that maybe people don't appreciate fully, is that by having your budget documented, you've then written down your spending and your savings goals. And the sheer act of writing something down vastly increases the probability of achieving those goals. So this is just one of those little things that really has a lot of importance to you and a lot of payback. So don't overlook this as one of the good reasons for having your budget and how to use your budget. And next, your budget is the basis for some other inputs or some other uses, specifically forecasting, which we're going to talk about in part 5. It's a foundation for next year's budget, and the time that it takes to do your budget after the first time you've gone through it is reduced because you've got your current budget and all the data and all the information that's contained therein. And the next year's budget goes a lot smoother. For retirement planning, in fact, I'm going to show you in part 6 how the budget is an input into your strategic retirement plan. And fourth, into something called the bucket analysis. And while this isn't part of the personal budgeting series, I will likely write a blog post on retirementjourneys.com about how the budget is tied to this particular strategy for how you make your investments. Okay, so now our last slide is, okay, how do you enjoy budgeting? Because if you're like most people, you probably don't have a budget and it's really tedious and it's not something that you particularly look forward to doing. So one thing to consider is if you set up a personal rewards program where you set a goal per month, per quarter, and if you achieve the goal, that you give yourself some kind of recognition or reward, and you can involve other people in this, but find a way to make it fun. It should be something that you reinforce your positive behavior by. And also, just sort of introspectively, just having the knowledge that you've got this discipline, and having the discipline allows you to kind of relax and to have confidence, and that you're in control and you're being proactive and you're not always falling behind. And that ties into managing stress too, that just by having a budget really, I think, can present a level of calmness because you're in control and you're not constantly reacting. You're managing things because you're in charge, and things aren't managing you. And another aspect of enjoying the budget is just the sheer joy of learning more about finance. You improve your financial literacy, and that just has ramifications across all sorts of things, whether it's investing, asset allocation, retirement planning. The more you learn about finance, the better off you're going to be as the CEO of You Incorporated. Well, I think that's going to wrap up part 4 for how to use a budget. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be working on part 5 on how to create and use a forecast, so stay tuned for that. I appreciate you joining me in this show so much, and if you have any comments or feedback or you like it, go ahead and please indicate so either on YouTube or on my website. Thank you, and see you next time.